March 26th, 2024 school committee meeting. I'll call this meeting to order at 7 o'clock. I will open the floor up to public comment. All right, Karen, can you, and John, can you just state your names and address? I know you don't live in town, but state your names, address. Typically for a public comment, we do 2 to 3 minutes.
Okay.
The committee won't engage, so it's
Right.
more of a statement, and if we hear we want to talk about at a future agenda, we'll add it on. But welcome, and thanks for coming.
Thank you. Karen McCune. I teach at Millbury Street Elementary School, 2nd grade, and I live in Oxford, 44 Dana Road, Oxford.
John Royks. I teach chemistry at the high school. I live in Paxton, 115 West Street, and we are the co-presidents of the Grafton Teachers Association. Thank you for your time.
Go ahead, John.
Good evening. We are here on behalf of the Grafton Teachers Association. Members are here to express our hope to be able to work with the Grafton School Committee over the next few months on a successor agreement to our expiring contract and the probable override that this district will need. We are here to support our students and to provide the best possible education for the children of Grafton. Our members are dedicated educators, but as you can see from the handout we brought along, if we could share that with you, is that okay?
That is absolutely okay. Yeah.
Okay. Pass it
Do it after, 'cause
Sure,
we'll
that's
look
Yes.
at the handle if you're not
The
listening.
handout that we
Yes.
brought along, Grafton takes longer than any surrounding community to reach the top of the pay scale, over a decade longer. It takes a Grafton teacher 25 years and 60 credits beyond a master's degree to get to the top of their scale. Well, teachers in Northbridge make the same salary for the same educational attainment after just 12 years. Teachers just 9 miles away in Milford make the same salary after only 11 years and with only having earned a bachelor's degree. The labor climate in Massachusetts has been rather turbulent over the last year or so, and we are optimistic that a fair settlement can be reached without such actions. We would like the committee and the residents of Grafton to know that we are not here to be confrontational, but in fact just the opposite. We are here to express our willingness to collaborate with the school committee in any way possible to assist with all override efforts and maintain a high-quality education that Grafton currently provides. We are here to express our hope that the committee and the town will acknowledge the magnificent work that we do and will work with us to assure that the educators of Grafton are brought in line with the rest of the districts in central Massachusetts. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, and the hallway too. Thank you so much. I do apologize that we don't have enough seats for everybody. It's great to have all of you here to listen to all of the great work that you're doing and our administration is doing, so it's nice to be able to celebrate together. Anybody else for public comment? Christy?
My name is Christy Kilbazinski, and I live on Lottie Drive. As a mother of 3 students in the school system, I have become a strong advocate for up-to-date policies. All school committees have a fundamental duty to maintain and uphold their policies. In February 2023, the Grafton School Committee voted to subscribe to the Mass Association of School Committee Policy Service at an expense of $10,500 over 3 years. The transition to MASC took nearly a year to complete. Observing the absence of policy subcommittee meeting to assess the accuracy of this transition, and given the significant expense to taxpayers, I have taken the initiative to conduct an audit of the policy transfer. Through my analysis, I've identified well over 100 issues with this transition. These issues should have been caught by the experienced members of our policy subcommittee. The bulk of these problems can be placed into 3 main categories. Firstly, numerous policies designated to remain as Grafton's version were instead adopted as the MASC reference manual version, resulting in changes that were not authorized by the committee. Secondly, policies designated to remain as Grafton's version have not undergone review in well over 3 years, with some dating back to 2011. And thirdly, and probably the most shocking, is the number of policies that did not transfer at all, including important policies such as IKB, the homework policy, meaning that this and multiple other policies are no longer part of the Grafton Policy Manual. As an involved member of the community, I believe it's vital that we guarantee our school funds are spent responsibly and they yield the greatest return on our investment. As of today, I do not feel as though that has happened with this significant expenditure. I expect more, and frankly, the people of Grafton deserve more from our costly investment. As you should hear during correspondence segment this evening, I made the request over a week ago to be placed on the agenda to speak with the committee on my concern regarding the policy transfer to MASC. I was denied that opportunity. It's my sincere hope for the citizens and students of Grafton that the policy subcommittee convene as soon as possible to look into and fix this extensive problems that currently exist in the new manual. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chrissy. Would you like to give those to us?
No, I
or
would
do
not.
you want to keep them?
I will keep them.
That's
Thank you.
great. Thank you so much for your help. We really appreciate you. Anybody else? No. Great. Moving forward, I am so pleased to welcome Melissa Wallace, and I will give people time to leave. I'm sure you won't take offense to that.
No, stay.
I'm so pleased to welcome Julie Flynn and Melissa Wallace to the committee tonight to share with us their wonderful work they're doing at North Grafton Elementary School and South Grafton Elementary School. I'm going to give a minute just for people to clear so everybody can hear you.
Thank you.
And to acknowledge your beautiful top and your dress and beautiful earrings. Excellent.
All right.
All
Thank
right.
you so much for having us. Obviously, I'm
being
Julie
here.
Flynn.
And I'm Melissa Wallace.
And Melissa and I decided that we would present together because we are working quite a bit as two schools on a project around PBIS, which stands for Positive Behavior Intervention and Supports. And given that the work that we've been doing sort of side by side as sister schools, it made sense for the two of us to present together.
And we also want to talk about and say thank you to the committee and to the town of Grafton for supporting our school adjustment counselors. So we'll be talking a little bit about their work in our schools as well.
Absolutely. So just a quick overview. There's obviously a lot that is within the district strategic plan that coincides with both the North Grafton and South Grafton goals for our schools. And so I believe we both have new school improvement plans in place at this point in time or going into place in the very near future. But what you will see is sort of a through line between many of those, one of the strongest being through the connection to our students and stakeholders, teachers, staff, and all of that. So that comes up in both. I won't read exactly what's on that slide, but you certainly can, and you'll see the connection as we present throughout. So starting with North Grafton, we are working very hard with a very small population of kiddos. We have our students are pre-K to 1, it's an early elementary building, and so we take a lot of pride not only in what we're doing around the work in teaching them literacy and teaching them, their mathematical skills and writing, but really also looking at the social component that goes into their learning as well, because as such small little children, they are just experiencing many things for the first time, and so we're hoping to provide them those opportunities in a number of different ways. In doing that, the only way to be able to do that is working with everyone who is involved, and so we've always really prided ourselves across both buildings at this level in terms of trying to make sure that we are coordinating not only the students with the teachers, but the teachers with the families, and the families with all staff in our building. So one of the things that you'll hear throughout both of our presentations, I'm sure, is that within the PBIS framework that we have implemented in our schools, it's not just about classroom teachers working with students or paraprofessionals and their work with students. It's everyone down to our PM custodian who comes in at 3 o'clock and dismisses, our students and really only sees our students for 20 minutes of his day. It is our secretary who has done a tremendous amount of work in connecting with students around the plan that we have in place. Our nursing staff, even the nurses that are coming in as practicum students, making sure that everybody who comes into the building is on board and a part of this and feeling like they are truly a piece of our school and a piece of the work that we're doing with our students. Certainly, our families continue to be a huge piece of all that we do, and we are working all the time to come up with new and creative ways to be able to involve our families. This year, with the implementation of a PBIS framework, one of the things that we did at both schools was that we shared out a trifold pamphlet with our families to be able to help them better understand the work that we were doing, and we will be surveying them at the end of this year to get a sense of what their takeaway was, from their interactions with their students and how they feel like it impacted their child, outside of the school setting. But in addition to that, just lots of wonderful things that, some things that have been going on for a while, other things that are brand new and or newer in the last couple of years. Our mystery readers are something that we love to have happen, whether it's a parent, a grandparent, or an older sibling coming back. That's something that we've done for a while, whereas our nature walks have been something that we've done in isolation in different grade levels, and this year we're doing a fall, a winter, and a spring, and it's parent coordinated, so that's something that has become a little bit of a new thing. And then, as Melissa mentioned, we have a school adjustment counselor in both buildings now, and so something that we've been able to do with much more consistency and validity is our lunch bunches. So we'll talk a little bit about that, but that's certainly something that is on the newer end, and we are enjoying quite a bit. Just some cute pictures of our kids and how we engage our families. So we have a picture of a parent who's in as a mystery reader, and then we did a spirit week recently. So we have Crazy Hair and Crazy Sock Day to coincide with Down Syndrome Awareness Day. And just trying to, our whole week centered around the theme of kindness. We had an all-school presentation from Ooch come in, and so really trying to help the parents connect to that as well so that they could be talking to their children at home as well. And I think one of the things that really stuck out for me was Thursday, March 21st, is World Down Syndrome Day and Awareness Day. And in addition to Crazy Hair, we had so many kids who came in with mismatched socks on, and they knew why they came in with mismatched socks. That was a really important thing, because our kids are little, and that's it's a harder concept for them to come to an understanding around at this age. But so many of them, and I picture our preschool students, because they understood it and they really got it, and that was kind of a neat thing for us. So just one of the ways that we try to keep our families involved in what we're also working on at school. So the PBIS framework. So last year, South Grafton and North Grafton, we entered into, a 3-year pilot with the Department of Education and the May Institute. And grant funded, so something that the district didn't have to put money for too. We were accepted into this program, and we each created teams to be able to create this framework within our school, primarily for consistency. I think you probably, if you've been around, and some of you have been for a little while, you've heard us talk about all the work that we do around social emotional learning in our schools. But what we came to find out over the years is, while we were doing a lot of great work, it might have looked different in 1C versus 1D, and K2 and K4, and it was all great. All of what was happening was great, but it was a little bit different. So something I said to a student might be something a little bit different, just a sort of a tweak of what somebody else was saying in their classroom. So we wanted to come together and make sure that we had a really solidified plan in place for how everyone was going to talk to students about our expectations, teach our expectations, and so we created our committee, and we've been working over the past year and a half or so to make things work, and we implemented for the first time in September. And what we identified at North Grafton was that our 3 major focal points were be kind, be safe, and be responsible. So in the past, you probably heard us talk about CARES, NGS CARES. CARES is an acronym that comes along with Responsive Classroom, and that is still part and parcel of the work we're doing, but CARES didn't necessarily have as much meaning to the children as it did to us. Like, we could say NGS CARES, they would say it with us. We understood what the acronym stood for, but we wanted to make it so that it was a little bit more developmentally appropriate for them and understandable for them. So those are our 3 major targets that we are working towards. And the way that we're working towards that is we worked with the teachers to bring all of their great ideas of what they were already doing together to create lesson plans and put into a handbook that everybody is utilizing. So pictured in the middle there is Miss Malone, and this was during the winter actually. We started off the school year where the PBIS team taught these lessons. So we taught lessons on how to walk in the hallway. We taught lessons on how we engage in group play out at recess. We taught lessons on how we use the cafeteria, how we use bathrooms, all of those major unstructured social times in our school. And then when we came back from the December break, our teachers then retaught those lessons. So every single student got the same lesson with the same language, with the same expectations, throughout a few day period, a 2 or 3 day period, so that everybody was on the same page. And that also meant that all of our paras, all of our custodians, all of our nurses, everybody in the building was hearing the exact same thing over and over again. So everyone's truly on the same page. And then the picture up in the corner there is one of our first grade classrooms. So what happens ultimately is that when a student does something that is expected, when they're kind, they're safe, they're responsible, a teacher will give them what's called a penguin print. And when they get their penguin print, they turn it into their teacher. So that they might be sitting at the rug, they might be doing something wonderful. A teacher will give them specific feedback about what they were doing. I like that you were keeping your body calm and focusing your attention, using your attentoscopes for the lesson. And they'll give them a penguin print, and the student will just put it next to them. And then at the end of the lesson, or whenever is a convenient time, they'll go over to their pom-pom jar within their classroom and trade their ticket in for a pom-pom towards their jar. So it's a class-wide effort towards what they're working towards. And once they filled that pom-pom jar, which is up to, I believe, 200 pom-poms per class now, they then get to put their pom-poms into, what was on that last slide, which is a grade level jar. They also get to trade in for something within their classroom, something small, a classroom activity. Like they might get to use stencils, or they might get to use markers that day. Nothing, it's a treat, but it's not like it's anything, major. But they love it. It's a great motivator for them. And then when they fill their grade level jar, the grade level gets to do something. So they might do a first grade stuffy day, or a first grade bring your favorite book to school day. Again, nothing major, but something that they get to enjoy and see that this is a team effort. We're working together as a whole grade level. And then when they do it all 3 grade levels, when we get to that point, they get to trade in for something as a whole school. So the pictures here are of students in a flashlight read. So we shut down the gymnasium, closed off all the lights, and grade levels came in together, and they could meet up with a friend and do a flashlight reading event, which was just sort of a fun way to connect them all. Before I finish up that, the one other piece to our PBIS program is that we also have a little bit of an incentive built into it, that we do a monthly raffle at the end of the month. If you received a penguin print that had a star on it, your name goes into a raffle, and you might get an NGS something or other, a sticker that says NGS on it, or a keychain that says NGS on it, something little, to keep that motivation going. So that's the final part of our plan. And really, I think we're in just about the end of the year, end of year 2.
Yep.
And what we're doing is we're looking at the data of office referrals and what's coming into us, and we surveyed our staff 2 months ago, to see, staff and students I should say, to see what their takeaways were from it. We're going to be surveying the parents at the end of the school year to see what their takeaway from it is. And while we don't have necessarily like huge behavior concerns or a huge number of office referrals at our level, it is really nice to hear parents saying, like, even the parents know what the expectations are. So we had specialist night last month, or at the beginning of this month, and our parents knew, be kind, be safe, be responsible. Like you could hear them saying it. And it's easy, it's helpful for parents too, to be able to have a very clear-cut system for what the expectations are. And it's even easier when you can connect it to school and say, well, these are the school rules and there are rules too, and make it like that. So I think that we've seen a nice steady progression of how it's impacting kids and how it's helping everybody throughout the day. The other area that we said we wanted to share out with you was around our school adjustment counselor. So new to us this year, we combined our school psychologist position into one across the 2 buildings, and then we each have a school adjustment counselor in our school. And they are tasked with a number of different things, starting with teaching our social thinking lessons throughout K and 1, supporting and teaching lessons for Second Step, which is also a social curriculum that we utilize. And then that's sort of our tier 1, everyone's getting that. And then once there's a need beyond that, she might hold a lunch group So we have specific lunch groups that we've done. For example, we have lunch groups for kiddos who might be coming from a family where there's a separation going on. We have a lunch group for kiddos who have siblings with intensive needs. We have a lunch group for kiddos who are just struggling to be assertive and have confidence in themselves. You know, and so she has a number of different lunch groups. And so what we did at the beginning of this year was, obviously there are certain kiddos that might be identified, but then she also put out a flyer to all families and just said, do you have any interest in your child being a part of this? So everyone had the opportunity to, you know, be a part of it, and they're still running. They'll run throughout the year, so they're running 6 week increments. And so during those lunch groups, they sort of focus and tackle whatever their topic is. You know, it could just be working on turn-taking skills. We have kiddos that's still an area that they need to work on, so they're working on that in there. It could be how to create a play plan. Not something that you might do if you take your kiddo to the playground on a Saturday, but when you're at school and there's 100 kiddos, it's really helpful if, you know, for many of our kids to have some sort of focus on what it is that they're going to do. So those groups meet 5 days a week. I'm sorry, she meets with groups 5 days a week. They might meet once a week for 6 weeks. And then you get a little, you know, little update from, you know, at home as to how the group went and what they did. So I thought I would try to include a video here of some little kiddos. We did a little Q&A with 2 of our kiddos that currently participate.
Hello, I am here with Gavin
Disregard my voice.
and Rowan. Hey, Rowan. And they are here to talk with us today about Lunch Bunch. Both Gavin and Rowan have participated in Lunch Bunch with our school adjustment counselor, Ms. T, this year, and they're going to answer a couple questions for us. Are you guys ready? All right. Starting us off, Gavin, what is your favorite part about Lunch Bunch? Game time. Yeah, what are some of the games that you play, Gavin? Nice. And you like Uno? Excellent. All right, Rowan, what about you? What's your favorite part about Lunch Bunch? You like the learning time? What are 2 new things, Rowan, you've learned this year in Lunch Bunch? Do you want me to help you with what you've answered? All right, let's see. You talked about how to be what kind of friend? A good, kind friend, right? And did you also learn about right and wrong, things you should do and things you shouldn't do? Excellent. What about you, Gail? What are 2 things you learned in Lunch Bunch this year? Ooh, that's a tough one sometimes, right? Matching your reaction to the size of the problem. But I bet it's easy for you to be a good sport, right? Yeah, you're really good at that. All right. Rowan, you're in kindergarten this year. Next year you'll be in 1st grade. Do you think you'd want to participate in Lunch Bunch again? Yeah. Why? It's fun. Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. And what about you, Gav? I think I saw you give a connection sign there. You're going on to 2nd grade next year, and they might have some lunch bunches up there. Would you want to participate in theirs? Yeah. Did you like it? It's pretty fun too? Awesome. All right, friends. Thank you so much for participating today. Want to give a wave to the camera?
Thank you for that.
So, you know, and just listening to some of the things they're talking about, they're thinking, like, for them, it's a fun. Stop YouTube. You know, it's something for them that, you know, is a fun activity, but really it's targeting skills. And they don't even realize necessarily that it's targeting skills. All of which are important, all of which help them be successful in their day and, you know, enjoy what they're doing each and every day and feel a little bit more successful. So on behalf of NGS, just want to say thank you to all of you. And I don't know if we want to split up and do questions now, if you want to wait and do questions after Melissa's. You want to do questions now?
Questions now.
Okay.
And then, if that's okay with you, Melissa?
That's fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions?
Jonah, it's great.
All right, I have a question.
When is lunch bunch, and can adults come? Because I need to remember how to match the reaction to the size of the problem.
That's a
To
big lesson.
hear,
Yep.
were they kindergartners or
Yes.
first? Yeah, kindergartners.
So Gavin was a first
teach,
grader and Rowan was a kindergartner.
Oh, okay.
But that is definitely a skill
that.
that we work a lot on. And
Wonderful.
yes, you're right. We as adults sometimes need to work on that ourselves.
Yeah.
But lunch bunches happen every day during lunch. So you'll often see kids standing eagerly by the door, like waving around, looking for an adult, saying, "Is Miss T here? Where's Miss T?" And waiting for her to come pick them up, and they go down to her space for their lunch bunch.
And I love the lunch groups too. I mean, I'm sitting here getting chills when you're describing that and what the kids get to experience and the different focuses that they're able to sit there and talk about. I think that's,
Yeah,
I
they're
think
great.
that's wonderful.
It's
yeah.
been wonderful. Having Miss T has been a game changer in terms of
Yeah.
being able to provide opportunities like that. So we love
So
it.
glad you have her, yeah.
Julie, that was actually my question, and I don't know if this is a question for you or Jay, but can you describe the difference between the psychologist and the adjustment counselor?
Yes.
So you were able to share, we got
So-
the adjustment counselors.
Yes, so the school psychologist now is one person shared across 2 buildings, and she primarily does testing only across the 2 buildings. She may service some students on an IEP if there's a student on an IEP with a certain level of need. Whereas the school adjustment counselor, while she may service students on IEPs as well, is also available for more instructional purposes across the building. Anything to add there?
What?
Anything to add there?
No, exactly what that is.
Thank you. Any other questions for Julie? And if we can always circle back.
Yeah, you can circle back.
Once Melissa
Okay.
presents, but it's great to welcome you, Melissa, your second year.
My second
South
year,
Grafton
another
Elementary School.
fabulous year, so
Good.
thank you.
We're glad to have you.
So we have the same premise, and this is our little saying, Ollie gives a hoot, be safe, be ready, and be kind. It is stated every day at our school announcements. We open this up with our first graders saying it after to kind of kick off our day. So what I'm going to talk about today is pretty much these key areas, our PBIS at South Grafton Elementary School. We're in year 2, I'll explain a little bit more, and also our school counselor, Katie Giacometti, and what she has done at South Grafton Elementary School. And as you can see with some of these pictures, our PBIS, actually it goes into every classroom. Even our intensive need students participate in this program and are part of our community along with everyone else. And even our computer lab, that's all the owls up on the left-hand side, she does PBIS with each of our students, each of the classrooms as well. So just some of our happenings at South Grafton Elementary School. This is one of our school improvement goals on year 2. And by this May of 2024, our goal is to have 100% of our teachers with full implementation with proficiency in PBIS, and we are there. Our team is continuing training both in school, before school, and also, as Julie said, at the May Institute in DESE. We go there probably about 4 times a year. We meet with other districts in the state, which is really nice to hear what's happening in their schools, share our ideas, and also get their ideas to come back to the district. Right now, we have had our school-wide expectation lessons at least twice, but we also have, I have a link here. I'm not going to show you the video, but there's a link so you can go on. It's on our district website. There's also lesson videos that the teachers can utilize at any time that has the same language, preschool, kindergarten, and grade 1. Also, I put this out to the families if we are having or have a need that, say, our bathrooms are starting to have, kids not showing the expectations. I might share that out with families. Can you review this with your child? It's kid-friendly. It's up on our website as well. We're addressing this in school. Can you also watch this at home? And we've gotten a lot of positive responses from those videos from families. And like Julie, we have school-wide activities. Right now, what they do is they earn Ollies in a jar. Ollie is our school mascot name, which I shared last year that the students voted on and created. And once they earn their ollies, they earn a feather to go on ollie. Once all their feathers are on, they come down to the cafeteria and they put on a feather. Once all the feathers are done, they earn a school-wide activity. We had a glow stick party in the gym, and our next school-wide activity is going to be some extra outdoor playtime. And our last one, it will be probably a human hot fudge sundae that I will participate in. So there's a long story behind that. I'm not going to share that, but there's a long story behind that. So, but again, fun things for the kids to do to work as a community towards a common goal. And right now we are in our stakeholder resources and surveys. Through DESE and through the May Institute, we also have a rubric and a checklist that we have to do. And one of the things is surveying our staff and our parents in regards to how they feel it's going, what are some of the improvements that we can do, some of the reflections of them, and we're on that stage now so we can next year improve it even more. So that is our PBIS at South Grafton Elementary School. This is Katie Giacometti. She is actually a North Grafton resident. She is our school adjustment counselor at South Grafton Elementary School. Again, I want to say thank you to the town of Grafton and to the committee and to central office for supporting this. She has been a valuable resource at South Grafton Elementary School. She has done tier 1, 2, and 3 supports. Some of the tier 1 supports, she goes in weekly to classrooms to teach lessons. She's taught the zones of regulation to all our kindergarten classrooms. She is now going into our first grade, and what has been really instrumental is that she has gone to North Grafton Elementary School to kind of see some of their lessons. North Grafton has been doing those lessons in previous years. I wanted to bring that to South Grafton, so she's been going there to see how they have implemented it and brought it back to South Grafton Elementary School. She is part of our PBIS team and does lessons and expectations along with the team. She also does lunch bunch group with students on that rotating basis every 6 weeks. The kids love going with her. They again, with their trays, waiting for her to come get them, to bring her down to the office to learn those lessons. Same lessons that Julie spoke about is what's happening at South Grafton Elementary School. And she also, based off individual needs, will do individual lessons with students. And those individual lessons might be temporary. It might be a death in the family, a separation of, parents, or some other kind of incident that she just needs to touch base with on a short-term basis with those individual lessons. When she does those lessons, Katie does do family connection newsletters with those parents to kind of tell the parents what she has talked about within her lessons, which is really kind of unique. On a weekly basis, on an individual basis, she will email the parents, this is what we talked about at home. If you want to talk about this with your child and follow up with me, please do so. And then she also contributes to My S'mores. One of the neat things that she has just started this past March is an enrichment activity before school. She surveyed the parents, and she had over 65 families who wanted to participate in this before school enrichment program. She had to narrow it down to 15, but it was a great start. And what she does is on Monday mornings from 8:15 to 8:45, about 15 families drop off their students at South Grafton. She brings them down to the library. She reads a story and then does an activity to go along with that social emotional learning story. She just read a book about the elephant's door, and they all made little doors to put around South Grafton Elementary School, and she kind of is going around to the classroom to say, if you see that door, you know that you're always welcome here at South Grafton Elementary School. So she's been a great asset to our school community, and I again want to thank you and to thank her, because she's been doing excellent work. And then just some of our highlights to kind of go in with that connections. We had a wonderful playground dedication for our new playground in honor of Doreen and all her work for that playground. We've had some great family PTO events, again, bringing that family engagement in. We had game night about 3 weeks ago with Millbury Street, and we had a big response to that. We always have a big response to our Oktoberfest at South Grafton. We've had all-school community gatherings where the kids will come down and we focus on a particular topic, on kindness, on community. We did winter songs and celebrations. So we continued that. We had our second year community reading day where some of you came to South Grafton to read to our classrooms. I will be inviting everyone next year. We have a strong parent volunteer force where they come in to do mystery reading on our field trips. And then we've had some key professional development to, again, have with that student and teacher engagement. And our last professional development was on trauma-informed classrooms, and the teachers both at North and at South were very engaged in this PD. It was excellent. It really brought a lot of light to what some of our students are going through and why our school adjustment counselors and the lessons going in on zones of regulation, it kind of gave them that aha moment. This is important work. This is research-based. So it's been really nice to see. So just again, Ollie gives a hoot. A thank you to all of you and what you do and just some of the things that we have done in terms of our community engagement. We had puppets coming in. We've had our literacy walk. The Spread Kindness was Katie Giacometti's work. We've been with our tracks with the railers have come into our community, again, trying to get that out. You'll see two students, it says, I can open my milk. Again, that's part of our cafeteria expectations. And then at the top, we did a kind of like a fun thing with teachers about creating like a Scrabble piece of, you know, what they need for their one word for the year. This one was balance. Other teachers did different words. So again, thank you to all of you and your efforts also for the students in Grafton.
Thank you so much. That was terrific. Any questions for Melissa? Oh, Rebecca.
Thanks. Well, this is kind of for both of you. I love all the stuff you're saying about what the adjustment counselors are doing. How are you identifying those students?
That's a great question. Some of the students are being identified through our SST program, which is our student support team. Teachers will come to that with, you know, a child, say Melissa is struggling with A, B, and C, with social emotional needs. And then the support team will say, this is maybe something that Katie or Mrs. T might be able to assist your child with in an RTI kind of format. Some of them are brought by parents. They'll call and say, you know what, my child is struggling with this. There was a death in the family. Can you connect me with the social adjustment counselor? And other times it's brought by the teachers and myself. Also going into classrooms and doing those support lessons in the classrooms, the school adjustment counselors can then say, you know what, I'm noticing, I'm wondering about, and that also starts a conversation. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, same. I think, you know, we, Christina, Ms. T, and I, at the beginning of the year, identified, I think it was about 6 or 7 sort of topics for groups that we've seen historically that we've always wanted to be able to do some work around. In the past, our school psychologists, we would attempt to put together these lunch bunches, and a 6-week, you know, intervention would turn into a 14-week intervention because she would be involved in so many other things. Weeks would get missed. So we sort of took the topics that had been ones in the past that we knew. We added the one, we had a request from a parent to do a group for siblings of kids with identified disabilities or intensive disabilities, and then we put those in a newsletter. We came up with a little blurb for each one, put them out to parents, and parents responded back, you know, as to whether or not they had an interest in there. And some people wrote, like, there was like a other section, and people could write something, and if they had a thought or a comment on something else that might be prevalent. So we took that information as well as SST and teacher referrals.
Amy?
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you for another awesome presentation. One of the things that I'm really happy about is that the experiences that the kids have at the 2 schools are different but also consistent. So you're building these individual communities with all of your little traditions and things that are so important. And then when they get older, they talk about that stuff. They reconnect in middle school with, you know, kids maybe they played softball with, or, you know, they met outside of school, and they're like, oh, do you remember Ollie the owl will be what it is in
Yeah.
5 or 10 years. But I can really appreciate the importance of creating that sense of community, but also the consistency, especially with the social emotional learning. I think it's great. I did have one question about stress. Do you find that the little ones need help and strategies managing stress, or do they not know how to articulate it? Maybe they're talking about it as feelings. I don't know.
I think that the students are talking more about as feelings, and you can kind of see their stress through their feelings. And I often say your feelings, whether it's an outburst or if it's being happy, it's a form of communication. And that is what we're trying to see, is what is the communication of these students, of these little people trying to tell us. You know, if they're, you know, crying a lot, or if they're doing outbursts, there's an underlying issue, and it could be stress, it could be anxiety, it could be a bunch of different things that's going on in their lives. So I think they're not gonna come up to us and say, us adults, oh, I'm stressed out, but we can see that in their, you know, in their everyday parents or their actions.
Thank you.
And that's the teaching them, you know, does your reaction match the size of your problem piece? You know, in kid-friendly language, which many of us as adults could also use that language the same to.
And in that
to
zones of
consider.
regulation curriculum, they kind of, are you in the red zone, which would be that stress zone?
Yeah.
Are you in the you know, those zones of regulation will actually teach them that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No, but you predicted it.
Okay, Liz.
I don't know why. I never ask questions. I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the new playground at SGS and the impact that you may have seen on the students and how they're
The new
receiving that.
playground at South Grafton is absolutely amazing, and I know it was a community effort, so again, I want to say thank you to the community. The children are interacting with it. They're going up on the slides. Our students who have multiple disabilities, because it's an accessible playground, you can see out there on the swing sets, engaging with the other kids. We have students who are on wheelchairs. They can go over on to the play equipment. They might not be able to access, like right now, the slides, because they're just not developmentally there, but they can go on and experience being up there on the playground equipment. The kids, we're not seeing as many, because of the nice padding, we're not seeing as many injuries as we've seen before, because that padding is there. I was a kindergarten teacher, and every spring we'd have someone with a broken arm because we just had that hard concrete, like packed down mulch. And now there's that padding there, so we're not seeing as many injuries there. We are seeing students definitely engaging in, it's a broader space, so that is nice to see. It's just nice to see that there's more space for them to play, and it's nice to see that there's more accessibility features to it, so all students can participate in it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, Megan?
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to make a comment. It's to me, it sounds like everything you guys are doing is just so thoughtful, and it sounds like these students, like, I would hope that with all this, they probably feel really cared for and like supported. And I love that you're like talking to them on their level about important things like emotional learning and stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's our
I
hope.
think our goal is for them to want to come into school smiling. Always, if they're running into school with a smile, we've done our job, because if they know that they feel safe and they know that they love school, they're going to learn. If they don't want to come to school, they're not going to want to learn. So I think we, try to do that, make that experience where they're running in with a smile.
I had a question. I love that. And I think we've worked so hard over the years trying to develop and grow the social emotional learning, because what we're seeing is hopefully what kids learn in NGES and SGES, they bring into Millbury Street, North Street, and then eventually into middle school and then the high school. And having these consistent programs will really do that. How does it interact with, how do you do with the preschool? And I'm asking,
Yeah, great question.
I had such an amazing time. I got to read, and I talked about this last week, but you weren't here, Melissa. I got to read to the preschool class, and I always go in and I'm like, all right, I'm going to read a book that's going to change their lives. And I picked this one about what a problem is, and I asked them, like, what's your biggest problem? And they said rain, because of worms. And that was like their feelings, was like the rain, and because that brought out worms that they didn't like.
So we've introduced actually our PBIS in there at the preschool level. They're earning all these, like, they're learning about, the expectations, and they're learning about their own little emotions through their curriculum. They do second step just like our K and just like our 1. So they are learning it. It's a small population because we don't have all the preschoolers of Grafton, but they are definitely getting some of those foundational skills. So when they come up to kindergarten, they'll know some of those like readiness skills for the social, emotional, and the expectations of school.
Yeah, and the system's the same for them. They know, they earn the Penguin Prince as well, and they're more than excited to be able to be a part of it. That we do adapt and change things a little bit, so whereas in the K&1 classes, they're currently working towards 200 pom-poms in a class, they're working towards 50 pom-poms. It's a smaller number of kids, some of them are only there half a day, so, we have to shift things like that. But they've been part of all the lessons, they've been part of everything that we've been doing as a school, and that's a big thing. That's always been a big push for us, to make sure that the preschool feels as included in our programming as everybody else. It's not a standalone preschool program. It is part of our early childhood program at North and at South Grafton. So they are just as much a part of it, and I think enjoying it just as much. We could ask a parent who is here right now.
Remind me to tell you about my preschool experience with bucket filling. It's just about as good as the rain.
It is, absolutely.
Good. I love to hear that. Any other questions from Ms. Wallace and Ms. Flynn? It's a delight to have you come every year. I think those two schools bring it's such a wonderful introduction into the Grafton public schools for families, for students. It just sets the right tone. And I know I talked to some parents the other night, and they were talking about, people hate to leave, which is wonderful. You want your kid to grow, but they love those communities so much, and it's because of you and your communities that you've built. So thank you. Thanks for coming. It's wonderful. Great work.
Thank you.
Are you good to, do you need to X out somehow?
All right, and next up, we have Jennifer Mannion and Tracy Kalo coming up to talk, kind of to piggyback off of what Mrs. Mannion presented 2 weeks ago with us, the Teaching and Learning Report. It's great to have both of you here. Tracy, it's great to have you back.
Thank you. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
I'm Tracy Kalo. I am the lead for teaching and learning in the secondary schools. And I get to do a lot of fun things. I get to work with the teachers on designing curriculum. We look at the delivery of effective instruction. We differentiate lessons together. We analyze assessments. I lead the professional learning in both buildings. I coach teachers around effective instruction. I also coach the assistant principals at the high school. And I support students around academic and, as of late, behavioral concerns. So I'm going to speak to a few of those things tonight. And I'm going to start with our focus this year, and it is exactly the same as it was last year. We are looking at instructional design that supports the removal of barriers to student learning. And we're doing that by looking at instruction that is informed by data, that's proactive, and that is reaching all learners. And I'm going to break that down for you by starting with Universal Design for Learning, or UDL. It is an instructional methodology that proactively anticipates potential barriers to student learning and supports the removal of those barriers within the lesson design. Last year, we started our work with UDL around multiple means of representation. Multiple means of representation, to make it short and sweet, is simply teachers offering options by which students can access information. So instead of simply reading a text, students may listen to a podcast or watch a video. This year, we're moving on to multiple means of expression, which is connected to assessment. And we are looking at piloting ways in which students can have some agency and some ownership around demonstrating what they know and can do in the different content areas. So specifically, what's happening at GMS is we are looking at summative assessments and building in choice of expression. At the high school, we are focusing on pre-assessment, and we have several goals for that. We're looking to help teachers understand how pre-assessment can inform their instruction. help to differentiate lessons so that they're reaching all learners, gather baseline data to track growth in student learning, and support students' ability to connect this new information to prior knowledge. So in the beginning of the year, I led professional learning workshops in both the high school and the middle school. I am taking this picture from the high school because it's a fantastic way to synopsize what the high school learned about the different types of pre-assessment and how it leads to student success. As you can see, the boy on the bike at the end, student success. So what I did in the workshop is I tried to model the idea of expressing our learning in different ways, and this particular group chose to make a concept map of a bike race to illustrate their understanding. At the middle school, we did a workshop together and discussion around multiple ways to demonstrate content knowledge. And as you can see, I'm just giving you a few varieties here, but some of them I wanted to point out are art infused. We did talk at length about that during the workshop, how when we tap into the arts with students, we are increasing their engagement and their retention of information. So like we did last year, teachers are practicing their learning. They are engaging in 3 to 4 pilots this year of their particular aspect of multiple means of expression. So at the high school, I'm going to showcase a couple of pilots that I think really get at the heart of what the administrators and I really wanted teachers to understand about pre-assessment, is that information is used to design and inform instruction, and that information is used to differentiate lessons so that we're reaching all learners. So here we have an example from a science teacher who did as a pre-assessment, essentially the students were asked to draw a concept map. And you can see here in her reflection that she used that pre-assessment to determine students' existing level of understanding around that major concept. What she's going to do with that existing level of understanding is she's going to see where do they begin in their understanding, are there any misconceptions, and then she will build off that. She'll learn from their existing level of understanding that there may be things she doesn't have to teach that she may have thought she had to teach before that pre-assessment. So it definitely drives her instruction and helps her determine what her next steps are in the classroom. Similarly, this is a 9th grade English teacher. She put together a multiple choice pre-assessment in which she gathered baseline information on any potential misconceptions around a unit that she was beginning. And as you can see, I asked them to share any data with me. So as you can see, she took snapshots of the data. And in her reflection, she explains what she's going to do and why it was helpful to her. The data made it clear to me, who has a stronger understanding and background knowledge of the skills, so I could make better informed teaching decisions, differentiating my lessons and placing certain students in groups. Along the same lines, a Spanish teacher was looking to start a unit on a verb tense, and what she needed to figure out was, do students remember the imperfect tense, and can they apply that understanding? She needed to know that in order to know how to build off and move forward. And as you can see from her reflection, the administrators and I asked the teachers to do a 5 or 6 question reflection, and I highlighted a few of them because I think it really brings to light the power of these pilots. You can see, we asked them to describe the strategy and why they used it, and then we looked at why did it work well, and the teacher is able to talk about, she can see who gets it and who doesn't, and what she has to do next, and the application slide helped her understand how they're able to take knowledge and apply it so that she knows where she has to support in that area. And then she just talked a little bit about what she would continue to do going forward. So that's at the high school. At the middle school, we're focusing on summative assessment and allowing students to have some agency in how they're expressing their learning. So I took this example from math because we don't often see art in math, but this math teacher allowed students to express their understanding of a transformation in a very creative, artistic-based way. In his reflection, he spoke at length about how he saw a very different level of engagement using this type of assessment as opposed to pencil and paper. This is reflection comes from a social studies teacher, a project that she refined using multiple means of expression. She built in auditory, visual, affective, and technology options. And you can see in the data, she saw that the students were asking more clarifying questions. They seemed more invested. She saw some focus on researching skills and their ability to have more accurate information. In addition to instruction, there's lots going on with curricula. So the high school has several new classes. And I'm sure Kevin and the administrators have spoke to it during the program of studies. So there are 2 new U.S. History classes, two new business classes, a new computer science class, new physical education classes. We are meeting with the health teachers next week to talk about new electives coming down the pike. We are continuing our work with writing expectations and social studies. What's happening in the middle school and the high school is we are marrying what's happening in the English classroom with what's happening in the social studies classroom, so that social studies teachers are using the same graphic organizers, the same rubrics, the same types of practice activities, so that students understand that what they do in English transfers into other content areas when it comes to writing. Science is moving to a phenomena-based instruction. And in addition to that, DESE has put out new world language frameworks, new PE frameworks and health frameworks, and we adopted a new math curriculum in 6 through 12, or 11, I should say, and a new ELA curriculum at the middle school. I feel like I need to take a breath after that. We are continuing to use the STAR assessment to gather data to inform our instruction. Last year I introduced this to you, and I'm going to kind of refresh your memories about the way in which we're using it. So there's several reports that I pulled for teachers after the STAR assessment, one of them which is called the State Standards Mastery Report. What that report shows teachers is how students achieved in terms of proficiency on the different state standards. So if you look at the first column, I have given you the first state standard. It's cite textual evidence to support analysis of a text. If I were the English teacher and looking at this graph, I see that I have students who are in different levels of mastery when it comes to this standard. Red means that that student is just beginning to understand how to cite textual evidence to support their analysis. Yellow means they have a developing understanding. They're probably at about grade level. And green means they get it. It's easy for them, okay? What we do with that information is we then decide how are we going to address those different levels of learners in our classroom? How are we going to support the students that may have a gap in citing textual evidence? How are we going to support the students who are on grade level? And how are we going to support the students who might be above? So we're going to create different groups with tiered assignments. And I'm going to walk you through what I do with teachers. So this can be a little bit overwhelming because teachers have to teach a lot of standards. I don't know if you're familiar with our frameworks, but they are, to say that they have a lot of breadth would be an understatement, I think. They're big. So what the teachers and I talk about is looking at what do students need to know and be able to do before the next unit to select 1 or 2 of those standards. And then what they do is they go into the STAR assessment report and they look to see how students performed when it came to those standards. And then they look at their own data. They look at their classroom data. They look at their tests. They look at their formative assessments. And they decide, okay, from what I know about Tracy as a student, she was yellow on the STAR assessment. But based on what I see in her in class, yeah, I would say she's a yellow. I'm going to put Tracy in the yellow group. And then we're going to put our students all in different groups. And then together what we do is we go through and we decide who are going to be in the 3 groups and what do they need to know and be able to do to progress their learning. So how this might look for Tracy, if Tracy's in the yellow group, and my English teacher has created 3 different groups. The red group, who is a skill gap, they're still just learning this skill, would be teacher directed. The teacher would be sitting with the red group. And they would help students understand how to cite evidence to support an inference using a short story and image, something that's easier to understand. Tracy would be in the yellow group. I would be practicing, so I would be working with a group of students in another group, and I would be working on drawing inferences and citing evidence to support my analysis using a more complex reading. And then last but not least, in the extension group, the students who understand, they get it, We want to push their thinking. We want to put them at the higher levels of domains of knowledge or cognitive thinking. So that group would work on their own, and they would answer a prompt something like this. Your friend asks you to critique her inference and the supporting evidence. If it is accurate, explain why, citing relevant details. If not, rewrite it for her. Amy. You're chuckling, Amy.
I am. That's awesome.
This year, I have been using the STAR data in an additional way. I have pulled the data around our growth. And I want to first speak to this chart that you're seeing. The first thing I want to tell you is that you are seeing the growth data for our 9th grade English team. I have left the names because the 9th grade English team is aware of the fact that I am presenting it, and they were absolutely comfortable with me doing it. The second reason I am presenting it is because it is nothing short of outstanding. So when we look at growth for students, good growth we'd like to see that means a student is learning as we expect, that growth median would be between 40 and 60%. Anything above 60% is considered outstanding growth, off the charts growth. The reason I pulled growth this year is because it allows me to sit down with the 9th grade team and say, you guys are knocking it out of the park. What do you think is happening in your curriculum and instruction that is getting this kind of growth? And they can talk through to me the changes they've made over the years and what they think has led to this extreme growth. What it then allows me to do is to go to other teams. So let's say I go to the 10th grade team that might not have as strong data and start talking through with them, what's going on with your growth? What do you think that might be? Now they all chat. So the 10th grade teachers know that the 9th grade teachers' data looks like this, and the 10th grade teachers can say to me, we've been chatting with 9th grade, and I think we need to do what 9th grade did and start looking at revising our curriculum and our instruction. So it gets to how do we make sure that we are delivering the highest quality of instruction in the classroom when we look at growth. Additionally, you're going to see in the next column, I started to look specifically for students who did not grow as we would like. So I'm going to, that's a caveat. I'm going to say they didn't grow more than 40%, okay? They did grow, but not as much as we'd like them to. If we want them to be between 40 and 60, I felt like I needed to start targeting students who were not making that benchmark now, and then start to look at why that might be. So I pulled the number of students who were below 40% in every class in English and in math, and then I cross-referenced. So in 9th grade English and in Algebra Geometry 1, who grew below 40%, and I cross-referenced to see if those names were on the same name was on those two lists. If so, if they have been, I sit down with teachers, specifically with math and English first, and talk through, what do you see happening with this student? What interventions should we start putting in place in English and math right now to support this student's growth? In other cases, I've sat down with teams of teachers, and they have said that they're concerned about a processing speed or an underlying disability that hasn't been found for whatever reason. Then I bring that student to our SST program or our meeting, and we talk through what is going on with this student. We invite the teachers to come into the SST meeting to bring in artifacts from the classroom in addition to the data I have on STAR, and we start talking through what do we see as impacting this growth and what does the SST team need to do to remediate that so that the student can achieve to his or her potential. And with that, I can take your questions.
Amy.
Hi.
Hi.
I miss you, Tracy.
Thank you,
You're such
Amy.
good work, though.
That's very sweet.
I have a question about growth.
Sure.
I know we have talked about MCAS in the past, and you've shown us that with MCAS, you look at grade 3 last year versus grade 4 this year kind of thing once those numbers come in. Are you finding that that's maybe not as useful anymore? This seems vastly superior to me in that you can identify specific kids.
So I used MCAS in a different way.
Okay.
I think that's the big difference. So when I looked at MCAS, I was looking more at a global understanding of what our scope and sequence was in those grades. So if I saw a gap in grade 3, for example, I would go down to the grade level leader and just say, we didn't do well in this particular standard. And we would unpack why that might be. Sometimes it was a scope and sequence issue. We didn't cover it long enough. We didn't go deep enough. We weren't rigorous enough. It was a different way of looking at the curriculum than how I'm looking at it now.
Okay, great, thank you.
To add to that, that time frame is obviously vastly different. Instead of a year later, this is
Correct.
in real time.
Oh, and I love the frequency, right? That we're not just doing it at the beginning of the year and the end of the
Correct.
year. It's, quarterly, or it's not still quarterly at the high school, right? It's semesterly, I'm thinking.
Yes. Well, it's 3 times a year.
3 times, yeah.
We'll do
That's
fall,
great.
winter, spring. The next
That's
one will be
really
in
great.
May.
Awesome, thank
I
you so
think we
much.
talk about MCAS, really big data driving big questions, big exploratory questions, and then using, we call this benchmark level data to further dig down. And we are working also on taking classroom data so that we have the 3 tiers, so we're really triangulating and getting a full picture of whether it's curriculum or individual student performance or cohorts.
Great, thank you.
Rebecca?
I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask just for clarification. When you're looking at the growth median, that is growth of, it's not like last year versus this year, or even, it's student to student, like,
So this growth is from fall to winter.
okay, great. That's what I thought, like, it's, you're tracking the same students, looking
Yes.
at their individual growth.
That's
It's not-
correct. Correct.
Great, that's crazy, thank you.
Boy, you stole one of my
I mean, that's awesome.
It's great. Leora?
I do have another one. And a surprise to no one, this one will be about sort of the impact of a lot of this on inclusion of kids with disabilities in general education classrooms. I assume that with the UDL options for expressing there and showing their knowledge, with more use of tiered assignments, is there an expectation or a plan or a hope? Our kids, I think, on IEPs often are more included in the lower grades, and as they move into middle school and high school, it sometimes can become more challenging for them to be in general education classrooms. So is the hope that this will, sort of increase the number of students on IEPs or with disabilities who are able to access general education curriculum?
Yeah, that would be awesome. We would definitely love for that to happen. Yes.
Is
I always
that,
think of UDL as sort of the menu of options
Right.
that's open to everybody, and then the differentiation we do through accommodations and modifications
Yep.
as being the required piece that we know this learner requires. So I think it's a 2-layered approach.
thank you.
Megan?
Oh, I just wanted to ask, when is the cutoff for STAR testing? Because it's not every grade and for every English and math class, right?
Yeah.
We are typically doing up through 10th grade. We
Okay.
talked about it's challenging to not have that data for the higher grades, but it's also challenging because people are taking different math courses. They don't necessarily, these are nationally normed data sets as well. So it's a little bit harder to look at that data in a calculus class or pre-calc or stats. Great question.
All right, thank you.
Good question.
Liz?
First, a couple of comments and then my question. I love so much of what you said, but 3 things just stand out. One is the kids showing the different ways that they exhibit their learning. And when you presented the art in the math class, I just love that because it just exhibits, like, there's more kids out there who can understand math than they know, than the kids themselves know that they can understand it. And being able to show it in that different way, I think is so amazing. There's kids who, want to study architecture and they need that math and they love the idea of it and the art of it, for example, but they don't think that they can do the math. Anyway, art and math go together. I love looking at growth, and when you said living up to their potential and looking at the individual students, it's remarkable that we're able to do that. I love that. 2 questions. I think I'll start with this one. When you're grouping the kids in classes on different with different skill levels or different, they're at different places.
Yes.
How is that communicated in the classroom so that kids don't feel like, oh, I'm in, this group, or how?
So that's a great question, and it's always a concern for teachers.
Yeah.
So it is communicated in a way that they are addressing skills that everyone needs to sharpen in order to be successful in the next unit. The other way that they address it is that these groups are fluid. So Tracy might be in a yellow group at one point in time and then be in a green group at another point in time. And that's to be expected. And so students are, and it's a really good question, Liz, but it's made me realize that although that was a concern in the beginning, I'm not hearing that from teachers.
Good. Yeah.
That kids are feeling like, what's happening? Why am I in this group?
Good.
So that's great. Thank you for making me
Glad to
remember
hear
that.
that. Yeah. And then my second question is, I was wondering if you could just, you brought up some new classes, and we've heard from Mr. Carney about the new classes in the programs of studies. Could you just describe the sort of the origin story of the new classes? Like, where do they originate, and then how does it move through until they come to us and we approve them?
So I'm going to speak in generalities, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
So certainly, if I don't answer your question and you want me to refine it, let me know. Okay. So U.S. history, there is a brand new U.S. 1 and U.S. 2. That came from, so we're going to go back many years. So when I started in the district 10 years ago, they were entirely sequential, date-based. And then they went to thematic. And then they realized by going to thematic, they were losing, the students were not understanding major historical periods and events that they needed. So what Jocelyn, the department head, came to me and said, we need to go back. And I said, we're not going back. We're going to combine thematic and the historical, like, the sequence. So that's how that came to be. The new business classes are coming from the idea that we need to beef up our the options for kids who are interested in business. So we took a business class and turned it into 2 different business classes. One's more on the marketing, and the other one in it is going to escape me now, but it has a different focus. So that students are, what was happening before, kids were taking a general business elective, and then there was really nowhere to go. So now there's a couple of ways to kind of expand our understanding and interest in business. Same thing with computer science.
So are they coming from, just so I don't make you go through each one
Yeah.
of these, and because I know there's probably a long story for each of them. Are they coming from the individual departments, and are they bringing them to you, or are you coming up with it? Is there
So I
a
think it's
meeting,
joint. I think it's a conversation.
Okay.
With
That's what I was
kids'
curious about.
interests.
Yeah.
What are students interested in? What are the administrators aware of the interests in terms of the scheduling, and then having a conversation with the actual department.
Okay.
And then it comes to me to help them develop that
Okay.
course.
Thank you. That's more. Yeah. Thank you. Amy, you have another question?
No, it's not really a question.
Comment.
It's kind of a comment. One of the things I like about exhibiting the new ways of exhibiting learning is that I find that it's happening, and I didn't think it would, in colleges.
Yes.
Midterms and finals are starting to disappear in colleges across the United States. And, I feel like we've been ahead of the curve on that because we got rid of midterms and finals, and we started doing G-term to reduce stress and workload for teachers in a bit of a way, I think. And it's really nice to hear that we're just kind of expanding that now to all these different options. And I've always loved those like choose your own adventure kind of assignments for kids, because I do find that they're more engaged in the learning than having to sit down. I have to write a 20-page paper. Nobody wants to do that. You'd rather write a play or make a skit or draw something. Like, I just love the options, and I think it's really positive, and it adds to the educational experience. So thank you for encouraging that.
You're welcome.
I think a big focus of Tracy's work and district work is around fostering efficacy. We know that has one of the highest impact ratings on student learning. So teacher efficacy and student efficacy, and I think that's one avenue to pull it out, is that it's not just confidence, it's confident because I know I have the skills. And
Work smarter, not harder.
Right, and I can transfer those skills to new learning.
And I do want to say quite publicly that when I do meet with students who are struggling, a lot of times teachers will come to me and say, I have so-and-so, he's struggling, I can't get through to him, can you have a conversation with him? I'll sit down with those students and talk through, how do you learn? Like, what do you need? And they'll start to say, I wish I could just talk about my test. Do I have to sit down and write it? Can I just talk to somebody about my test? The teachers at the high school are unbelievably willing to do whatever that student needs in terms of achievement and progress. If I email that teacher and say, so-and-so just needs to talk through a test, that happens. So I want to just say, lots of kudos to the teachers. They've got a lot going on, but they are very, very willing to support their students.
Kind of follow-up question to that concept, which is a wonderful thing that the students are able to demonstrate their learning and find ways that engage them. What about a student that maybe does well, but their learning style doesn't really mesh with the teacher? Is there any kind of a feedback loop to say, well, you know, I want to continue to study this in this particular path, but you know, how do I interact with my teacher in a way to make their style and my style work better? Because if the child is getting good grades or the student is getting good grades, nobody might notice that, you know, they're not engaged in something because they're not getting what they need. So
Yeah.
is there a feedback loop for students?
Not one that is formal and structured.
Yeah.
But where that tends to typically happen is through the guidance counselor.
Fair.
Because they go to the guidance counselor, then the guidance counselor will call me. And
Okay.
then I will come down and talk through.
Got it.
Yeah.
Great.
And I think the UDL lends to that because you have that menu at the onset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might have an opportunity to choose a more creative pathway or more practical sequential based on my learning style.
Okay, great, thank you.
Rebecca?
One last, sort of a question, sort of a comment. I used to be a teacher, and when I mean, and we did a lot of differentiation, and it was always sort of, you know, it's a big ask. You're asking for a lot. And I'm wondering if you're seeing, because another thing, one of the things that I really love, which was sort of from the beginning of the presentation, is on doing that pre-assessment. And do you feel like are you getting feedback that teachers are able to recover some time? Like, we have to put in this extra effort, but we've determined we don't even need to cover X, Y, Z, because that's what I always felt like there's nowhere for me to build time.
Yes, yes, correct. And we've really stressed that's the point of this, is for you to see what do you actually need to teach. And in terms of the big ask, what I try to do is I go in and plan the lesson with them. I don't simply say, here's your data, go
Good luck
plan your
to you.
lesson. I plan it with them. And when it comes to the humanities, I offer to take a group. I can't do it in math. Nobody would want me to do it in math. But again, to speak to the teachers, the new math department head has offered to come in and take groups for the math teachers when they're doing differentiated instruction. So it really becomes a team effort.
I love that, thank you.
Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you both for coming. This
You're
was
welcome.
really-
Thank you.
Really great work.
Great.
Keep it up. Thank you.
As we switch over, I want to introduce Paige Cooper, who's hiding in the back. Paige is a wonderful middle school ELA teacher, and she's pursuing admin licensure with a curriculum focus. Is that right?
That's why I'm here.
All right.
This counts as hours, so thank you.
I think it's gonna be a long one. Kevin's up
Chose a
next.
great
You're
meeting.
gonna get your hours in.
Here's some-
I'm an active listener too, so I was like, yes, Tracy.
Yeah, no. I'm glad to see you.
She's my little fan section.
I was.
All right. Is Kevin moving up behind me, or?
No, he's
No.
still, he's sitting.
Comfy, chilling out back there.
Drinking his water.
Thank you, sir. You're
I'm gonna call up Kevin Carney now.
Hello, everyone.
Nice to
Hi.
see you.
Hello.
Thanks for
I
coming.
feel like I was just here.
I was gonna say, weren't you already here?
This is past our bedtime, isn't it? You have classes first block
Yeah,
tomorrow?
I want their
do?
feedback on this a lot.
Do you need excuse
Yeah,
tardies?
so-
I think we should give each other excuse tardies tomorrow. I may have to miss traffic duty tomorrow. This is late for me. Way past my bedtime.
Well, you can work on it by.
Yes, I will work on it. I know where you're going, Ms.
I
Austin.
would
I will
also
try to
like
be
to-
succinct
I
in
would
my
like to hear from our
my
students.
commentary. Thank you all for having me tonight. And I know that I was just here probably 2 months ago, discussing our program of studies. But I hope to piggyback off some of the things that Ms. Kalo talked about and how this work connects, because as we're constantly working to close achievement gaps with kids, and really our discussions revolve around who are exceeding our standards, who are meeting our standards, and who have gaps in their learning, and what plans do we have for all involved. But also our work in the principal's office, as well as the school counseling office, is what are we doing structurally in our schools that creates barriers and really impedes our students who, classroom to classroom, department to department, we're really focusing on those areas of skills in those disciplines, but are we positioning our students in the best marketable place? Because for us, particularly in the principal's office, in the school counseling office, it's preparing those students for their first job interview or for their admissions interviews if their aspirations are to go on to college, and making sure that they're well-rounded, their portfolios and transcripts and resumes are in place the best that they possibly can be. In my work with high schools, and not only in Grafton and in Uxbridge and Ashland, but in many districts who I've had the pleasure of working with, we do have structural barriers in place that we just don't realize until it's brought to our attention. So we've discovered some in Grafton that I hope that the school committee will take into consideration. Technically speaking, I think it should be a vote of action. If not tonight, I want to leave you with something to sleep on, and we can revisit it later. But certainly our job is to stay on top of how schools are changing in Massachusetts and across the country. And when we see schools change, what are we doing to position our students in the best position possible for their next chapter of their aspirations? So tonight I'm going to talk about all of our courses, those credit-bearing courses that have grades attached to them, and why they should be attached to the GPA factor. This wasn't discussed in our program of studies last month or the month prior, because personally I was unaware, and other principals that I've talked to were unaware that some courses have just changed over time because the level shifts or things roll over from one year to the next. I know you've had discussions about your policies and how quickly some things can become outdated, and you need the assistance and you need the oversight of what's happening in other communities to adjust along the way. So I apologize for coming back to you 2 months later, but I'm apologizing in advance because I'll probably continue to do this every time I see something that's structurally in the way of improvements for our schools. So this has been our mantras over the last several years since I've been principal. You've talked a little bit about that in the prior presentation, where the math and the arts, they connect, and we've tried to provide the program of studies in such a way where we want kids to take ownership of their path. If they have an understanding of what their strengths and interests are, let's navigate this with you so that you're matching your skills and interests along the way. Broaden your horizons, like whether it's higher education or high school, there are prerequisites to graduation that you have to do in order to earn the credits that you need. But there are also plenty of elective courses that we want to attract you to towards your interests. Or if you don't know what your interests are quite yet, to dabble. Go outside your box and test things out. Education really is about lighting a fire, not filling a bucket. We value all of the courses in our program. We think there are things that will certainly help the profile of our students as well as their skill sets. And I'll quote a colleague of mine who's now retired. His mantra to students each and every year was, find what you love and find what you're good at. Find that match. That's what your program should look like over the course of 4 years. We've learned that so many of our electives outside of English, math, science, and social studies have no factor into their GPA. And I just want you to think about that for a second. We've really pushed the message hard about finding pathways. And if you look from the helicopter perspective of your program of studies, there are several areas that if you map it out, really will set you up well to attract competitive schools, whether it be business studies, whether it would be STEAM, And we stress STEAM, not STEM, STEAM, because we understand that if you really look at some of the most successful doctors in the world, if we just want to look at medicine, they're also artists, they're also musicians. So how those arts factor in to the science, technology, and engineering of our education. Communications and creative arts and communication, global studies, so on and so forth. There's enough courses to find a map over 4 years. But how our structure is, with some of our courses not being included in the GPA factor, we're deterring kids from taking those courses. And it's taken a while to figure that out. We've had students tell us, I'd like to take this course in the arts or in this music class, but it's not going to help build my GPA. And we're really doing our students a disservice, in my opinion. And I should stress, before I came to you tonight, I checked with every department head and our curriculum office to making sure that we're on the same page and everyone's in unison, that we should be including all courses into the GPA factor.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
There,
Can I ask
sure,
a question?
yeah. Cut me off at any time, any of you.
Thank you.
Just go ahead.
Can you just explain to me, so some courses don't count towards their GPA? This is something I don't.
Yes, we're going to get to those in these
Okay, you're gonna
coming
get there?
slides, yes.
All right. I read
And,
through. I thought I read
yeah,
them
and
all.
you'd be surprised at how many principals, as I made phone calls over the last 4 weeks, were unaware of this as well. So when you're thinking about, we have a number of students who are taking courses at the college prep level who have aspirations to achieve, whether it be associate degree or bachelor's degree or beyond, that are taking courses in the electives that aren't counting. And again, I just want to stress it's doing a disservice. Why is the social studies elective, like law, earning a GPA factor, but health doesn't? And health is a high school graduation, is a graduation requirement for Grafton as well as the state of Massachusetts. It's not factored into the GPA. And we have a number of students who are looking to go into the health sciences, you know, after college. Or documentary filmmaking, as an example, versus jazz workshop. It's not equal. So we have to address it, in my opinion. I've probably gotten ahead of myself in the slides. I'm speaking to things that are coming out in print after I say it, so don't mind me if I move past it a little bit, but I'll just keep it there for a second for you to process. It's putting our kids at a disadvantage if we don't include all of the courses, but neighboring districts do. At the end of the day, they don't care what zip code you come from. They're all looking at GPA at the college admissions table across the country. These, I'm just going to roll through some of our departments where they don't. And I want to stress independent study, too, because I think that should count for credits. Because since the first admin principal, I've said the ninth grade should look a lot different than 12th grade. And if we're talking about college and career readiness, what are we doing to immerse them, or at least, I shouldn't say immerse, I should say, what are we doing to prepare them for those experiences before they're immersed into that full-time environment? So taking college level courses, at least one, is a benefit to our students. Or an AP course is beneficial to our students. Having an internship is beneficial to our students. Figuring out what you want to study on your own based on what you've learned in the 3 prior years and go with it under teacher supervision is a step in that direction of preparing kids for college and careers. Look at all of those fine and related art courses. Health and wellness, science and technology, when we look at the DESE report card that's on our website, it came out earlier this fall, and we look at the percentage of our kids participating in arts courses. Look at us over the last 3 years compared to the state average. And I'm of the opinion that we should not be below the state average in anything. Are we providing barriers based on our GPA factor that is deterring kids away from taking elective courses that they want to take, that they really love, and they're possibly good at, because they're fearful that if they don't take these other classes that have the factor, will determine the school where they attend after high school. Same thing with computer science and digital literacy. It's hard to get information from other school districts. This isn't something that is on the profiles when you go onto the DESI website. There are so many different formulas for GPA factoring, so many different weighted. Now many schools, colleges, when they're communicating out what is their average GPA of accepted students, they've adjusted to the weighted GPA. That doesn't mean they can't look at the unweighted scale of a school too, but they communicate out what the weighted scale is. These are school districts that have been forthcoming and communicating that they factor everything. And part of my problem with Grafton was I was just under the assumption that we did, because I've been so used to doing it in one of my prior districts that's on the board. I think that by making this change, more of our students will be attracted to the courses that align to their skills and interests. And they should increase. I see my students over there nodding their head in agreement, and that's always a good thing when I see that. But I think both the school and individual profile should increase as well, and that's important for us. Ms. Prem, you have a question?
I do. So say a student takes Introduction to Business or documentary filmmaking, and it's not factored into their GPA. Is it just non-existent? Is it as if they didn't take the class?
I'm going to show you that.
Okay.
Yes. I'm going to actually show you what our current, take a 1-year snapshot of a 10th grader, right? Use our current structure, and then if we were to apply those courses and the GPA factors, you'll be able to see the shift.
Does it hurt them? Like, is it
Most
average
often it
strangely?
wouldn't.
Okay.
Now, everything is individually based. I
Sure.
mean, you can take an elective class because you like it and you feel like, I don't feel like putting the effort into it. And if you don't do well, anytime you don't do well in a course, it's going to decline your GPA.
Sure.
That's just simple mathematics.
And
Bye-bye.
just a comment about that, I've noticed, like, in health and gym classes especially, once people figure out, oh, this won't affect my GPA, it's like, I just need to get above a 60. And it definitely declines participation in the course.
Yep.
And I think it, like, puts a lot of strain on those teachers, where if all your kids are just, like, putting in no effort because they realize it doesn't matter, it's hard to get them to do the work.
That's an excellent point, and you should definitely get an excuse tardy tomorrow if you come in late.
Write it up for her.
All right, so this is the example of the current formula. This is a sample 10th grader. We'll call this student Jimmy Cummings. No relation to our fearless leader. But you'll see that this student, and this is a question that you've probably heard before, you've probably asked before. It will be true, it was probably true in 1950, and it will be true in 2050. Is it better to take a college prep course and get an A than it is to take an honors class and get a B+, or an AP class and earn a B? And, I mean, college admissions officers will tell you, take the AP classes and get an A. That's what you should do.
You won't, though.
What's that?
Sorry.
Go
I mean,
ahead,
I've
jump
heard
in.
very different things
Yeah.
from them. And I have so much to say, so I won't interrupt too much. It's almost a societal thing, right?
Mhm.
It's what we value in our community.
Sure, yeah.
And we value so it's a systemic change. And,
100%.
I mean, I can hear the parents, though. My kid this kid got to be valedictorian because they took what I consider, like ceramics, that class is hard.
Yeah, you're right,
Hard.
you're right.
It's
You're
not an
100% right,
easy
Laura.
A. Sorry.
So if you
I'm
look,
so sorry.
no, that's fine. So just let's look at this sample schedule. This student, Jimmy has challenged himself here, okay? He's taken the advice of probably his counselors, his teachers around him. He's in his second year of high school. He's taking 2 honors classes, and he's in a small pool of students who will be taking an AP, who took an AP class his sophomore year. And he did well. He earned the honor roll. It's hard to ask anything more of this student with this rigorous schedule. But Jimmy also loves music. And he has long-term dreams of going to college and studying, maybe going to music school. But he doesn't have room in his schedule yet to expand out into those other electives. But if he took guitar, he did take guitar, he just didn't get GPA factored to it and aced them. Same thing with health and physical education, got a B+. Weren't factored into the GPA. And what came out at the end of the year was a 3.34. I want you to keep that in your mind. I can go back into the slides because I'm going to show you what it changes to when we factor in those courses that aren't equated in here. And then what the average GPA of the top 5 schools that our students have applied to since 2020 in the final slide. So right now, without those courses factored in, it's a 3.34. You factored it into the GPA, that shifts to a 3.428. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it is when it comes to conversations with admissions officers. And this is just 1 year. Think about that over 4 years, okay? Now, again, the college admissions officers can always ask, okay, I'd like to see what it looks like on just the unweighted scale of a 4.0, and some of those classes would pull out, and they're just focused on the core academics, if you will. But still, it gets the students to the table. That's our job. We want students to feel prepared and ready to apply to the schools of their choice, of their aspirations, and not feel out of 10th grade that I'll never get there. And I do believe that happens to our kids. I do believe that happens to our parents, and that's not right.
So how much of this is assuming that the kid's gonna get an A in guitar or do well in health and phys ed and get a B+? So how much of this depends on the fact that
It does depend on the individual and
Yeah.
their willingness, and by crossing of the fingers, they're getting into electives of their choice. We do know the challenges sometimes that kids don't always get their first choice, and we're constantly working at how do we create that flexibility to do that within 4 years. Part of the reason why we infused more early college courses because kids are able to take full-year courses, get full-year credit and college credits in a semester, giving more wiggle room for more elective courses. That increases the chances of kids getting into some electives, a good number of electives that they're skilled in, right? But to her point, to Meg's point, that you have kids signing up for classes, okay, I'm just gonna get my graduation requirements out of the way, I'm not gonna put in the full effort, it becomes classroom management issues. It also benefits our school in that regard too, that everything counts. Put your best effort into it. And especially for our electives, if you do what's expected of you, you should do well in those courses. Many of our electives do not have the homework requirements and the taxing after-hours expectations to prepare you for advanced placement tests and MCAS and some of those things. They're just classes that they like. It exposes them to different things, and teachers understand that for our students who are enrolled in them. I'm going to leave this slide up for a long time because are we doing the best that we can do to prepare our kids for the schools where a solid number of kids are applying to? at least until 2020, I've kind of done this dry run through of throwing this out there at different sites of saying, what do you think the top 5 colleges and university our kids are applying to since 2020? Most of the people I've asked this question to are in the ballpark of this. There's a number of reasons for that. Maybe it's affordability. Maybe it's geographic location. Maybe it's because it's major research universities and the array of what they have to offer for kids are there. So it attracts a wide pool of applicants. But when we're competing against other schools as well that may have made adjustments to their GPA factor, and we have a good sense that if we make this adjustments, GPAs will have an uptick. Not a huge uptick. It's not going to be changing who's valedictorian or salutatorian. Let's be honest. But it does change the game for students who may not be ready for an honors level course across the board or AP courses, but they do have 4-year college aspirations, and what are we doing to best prepare them for that? The best thing that we can do is broaden their transcript and their portfolio and have them tell a story that resonates with college admissions officers. Megan wants to make another point.
Oh yeah, sorry.
You're not going to get an excuse tardy for Thursday.
It's okay. I have a couple points. One of them is, do you think that we could start looking at weighted and unweighted GPA? I know in regards to valedictorian and stuff, weighted obviously makes more sense, but I think it's good for people to know what their weighted and unweighted GPA is, because I think it could balance out the kind of incentives to take different courses looking at both scales, because with unweighted GPAs, I know at a lot of schools it kind of builds in this padding where I'm going to take a couple art classes, it'll boost my GPA if I do well in it, and it might be time to decompress. But then with weighted, it's like I have to take all APs and
Sure.
all honors.
We can do that now.
Yeah.
There's nothing that prevents us from doing that now. I will tell you this, just based on track record of looking like at the last decade. If anything, those students who are in the top 10 and vying for that valedictorian spot, if anything, they probably have overloaded in the APs. There are electives there, but it's very tightly tied to the cores.
It's sad too, because I know a lot of people purposely don't take courses they would enjoy because they want to boost their GPA. But if colleges look at unweighted GPA a lot, it sometimes could even help you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like, especially in like 9th grade, I think increasing transparency on how the GPA system works would really help kids make informed decisions about the courses they take and understanding how they need to perform to succeed. I personally have calculated my GPA a bunch of times, but I went and found it. But people don't know what grades get you what points. They kind of just are like, oh, well, I hope I do well, and don't really know anything about it.
I'll tell you this, and this may be alarming to parents to hear this, but you know that in Grafton, the athletics is highly valued. And we have many student athletes who do have aspirations to play collegiate sports. Those conversations with admissions offices happen starting in sophomore year in some places, in juniors, where they're asking you about GPAs and what is their courses. They don't necessarily have to know the GPA yet, but if they're telling you this is what you need to earn and you're able to show what your strengths are in your transcripts, you've got time to really strive for that in terms of what they expect. So when we look at this slide again, and I'm going to go back now, let's go back to Jimmy under the current formula at a 3.34, earning honor roll, taking 2 honors classes and an AP. Very strong year. Our flagship university has a 3.39. And that has to be concerning for us. And over the past few years, 48% of our applicants have earned acceptances. Our highest is 72 in our backyard of Worcester State University. So whatever we can do structurally to remove barriers, I think we need to take that. And I've seen some language in other program of studies where it says under the department, all courses in X department, whatever it may be, is considered a college preparatory course unless otherwise specified. And that would show, honors or AP. So it communicates everything's being factored in. I think we also factor in independent studies. We have to make sure the structure is there so that it's rigorous. It's not someone showing up for an independent study on day one and then there's no connection with the teacher for the next 90 days, but.
So would you, oh, sorry, I
Sorry.
didn't see your hand.
With independent studies, would you consider scaling them so they could be, because I know like an independent study means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Like I'm actually working on my like application right now and I'm like, wow, I'm gonna be spending a lot of time in this more than some of my APs. So are we willing to try to give more credit? Like,
So let's use AP as an example. If you're looking at an independent study being considered for an AP, if it were to be structured like that, you'd be expected to learn the content for that course because AP courses are test prep courses. If you sign up for that, if you enroll in that, you're expected to take the AP test at the end. So if that independent study prepared you for that, I think there's justification for it.
Kevin, so before I open it up to questions, are you finished with your presentation, or are you still?
Yes, I'm ready for questions.
Okay, before I do that, and I'd like to go back to just making sure that I'll call on everybody. What are you looking from us tonight? Do you need a vote? Do you need, what exactly do you need
Because I
from us?
think, just to be, I think procedurally sound, if you will.
Yeah,
You took action on the program of studies.
yeah,
And we've made some course adjustments here and there, whatever it may be. So you took a vote of action for that to approve it. Since there are some courses that don't have a designation of college prep attached to it, I would ask that the school committee take a vote of action to, and I'll go to the original slide, to include that all graded credit-bearing courses in the Grafton High School program of studies be considered as for a GPA factor.
okay. And so my concern, I guess, is are we too late? Kids have already registered for classes. Is there?
Effective next year
Yeah,
or
this
something?
right?
this is
Or have they
effective
not?
for 2024, 2025
Right, so
school
there's
year.
time to adjust, because I know some, yes.
people adjust, like,
I know that, yeah.
Yeah, I know that, like, it's kind of a burden on guidance sometimes, but I've heard people adjust, like, all throughout, like, after summer.
Sure, I've heard, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. So keeping that in mind, can we think about, well, you can ask whatever you want, but just trying to focus on questions that would help you make that decision moving forward or moving not. My question is, I go back to ceramics because I have a very personal ceramic story, which I won't share. But is there a clear, like, I am a huge supporter of the arts and of all of this, and I wish that kids could just take things that they want to learn, that this whole, that's like a whole other conversation,
Yep.
and I'm way out there. Are there, like, will there be a clear rubric? Like, sometimes art is a little, like, it's like talent for theater, right? If you take acting, like, some people have natural talent, some people don't. So I would like there to be some sort of like rubric for people to understand. They can take it, they might love ceramics, but their pots might flop all the time and their parents might
for
laugh
sure.
at them. I don't know where I got that from, but, so, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's super important, and I absolutely think a CP class, that college prep classes, that's absurd. That should count, in my opinion. So I'm on board with this. I just wanna make sure it's very clear.
So
for
let me
kids,
just use
'cause
the.
there should be this, like,
so-
love to learn.
right.
Like, I should be able to go learn to play guitar, and maybe I'm not a great guitar player. But then
Right.
I don't want that be like, now I'm stressed out because I can't play the guitar after one lesson. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I wish
No,
it could just be like a love to
that's
learn.
something that we're really going to have a laser focus on to make sure that doesn't happen, for sure. So let me just use art as an example. I think we made an art fundamentals class in AP. That was one of the things that
Yeah.
you approved
Yeah.
in the recent years. So by that, making that shift to AP, that automatically gives kids AP credit and a GPA factor. But we haven't included that for what I consider the college prep
Right.
level for students that, and many of them are, who are showing up and participating in class and doing their best. They're working against the frameworks of Massachusetts of what the skills should be, or, throughout the course. But because we just put AP for that and made it available for, a small cohort of students, they're getting AP credit for it and a GPA factor. Whereas kids who need it in their schedule because it's a graduation requirement, aren't getting that factor in. So to your point, though, there needs to be rubrics really for everything that we teach.
I'm guessing there are. I guess I'm just thinking of, like, sorry, Amy.
No, I just wanted.
Yeah, I guess I'm just thinking, like, somebody who takes an AP art class, they're probably an artist, right? They probably love it. Somebody who takes fundamental of arts, I don't know what I'm arguing in, but like they might really like art, but maybe they can't draw well.
Right.
Like, are they gonna suffer? And I asked this, I'll say, so I took ceramics in college, right?
This is the personal story that we've been waiting for.
I was horrendous at it. Like, I admit it, I was awful. I worked my tail off. I was there every weekend. We had to make our own clay. It was hard. You have to be a centered, calm person to do that. At the time, I wasn't. I would be much better now. But, I got a C, which was fine. It hasn't affected my life, but I was in college. You know what I mean?
You seem pretty upset about it still.
I think it has. I want somebody to take ceramics because they want to learn to throw pots and
Right.
be happy about it.
It's a little different, though, in comparison. I don't know where you went to college versus high school. But, like, my son wanted to study, he was going to sign up for a course of the history of rock music at a very prestigious music school.
Yes.
And I said, you're not signing up for, a let your hair down kind of relaxing course. You need to know where you are. And if you're taking this course just so that you and I can have better conversations from child to adult, about some interests that I have, let's pick a course that's more alongside, along with your interests, right? So there needs to be some assistance in helping kids select courses that are good for them. And I don't mean to imply that if a student is struggling in ceramics at a high school level, that they're going to do poorly in it. If they are showing up regularly, if they are putting forth the effort that the teacher expects, if they're showing growth over the course of the school year, I can almost guarantee you they're not going to be hurt in their grade. If that makes sense.
I'll stop with my own ridiculous questions and open it up to the committee. Amy?
I have two questions. One, when we talk about independent study, that is not the same as taking a course on edgenuity, is that correct?
No, that's correct.
Okay. My second question, it's kind of a comment too.
That's intent. I want to elaborate on that.
Yeah.
That you're doing intense independent research.
Yeah. Okay, I got it. I guess.
You have to submit a proposal for it to be.
I'm in support of this idea, but I feel like in the interest of time and in the interest of how we've done this in the past, I feel like we need to say specific language. Either we're going to approve the handbook or language that's going to go into the program of studies or something like that. I feel like we need specific language that we see how it's being communicated.
Sure, yep.
Because that's how parents will reference it, that's how students will reference it. I'm on board with, all credit-bearing courses being included in GPA. I think that's great. But at some point, we're going to have to prove specific language, so.
That was kind of what I was getting at. Megan?
Do you think we could make like a separate reference sheet or like handout to have somewhere about GPA specifically and like just kind of going more in depth about how the scaling works and stuff? Because I know in the course of, or the program of studies, it does have this like conversion, but it's like very annoying to pull that out every time and like search for it. So I think like having a specific reference sheet that like guidance counselors can be like, go look at that, and people will know.
Right. I had no interest of bringing suggested language change for the program of study tonight. I just really wanted to have a discussion with you because we have time.
Yep.
This would be a summer task anyway if we were going to adjust the formula and recalculate it for students. But I wanted to, I knew what the temperature was in our school around the topic, and I wanted to get a sense of how you felt about it and your interest in making this hopeful improvement for our school. So I agree with Mrs. Marr. There needs to be specific language so that it's consistent throughout the program of studies. And it can be simplified, and we'll draft up a couple of proposals for you before you have to make that official vote, if that's how you want to do it.
Great, and I know Liz had a question too that I.
She can always tell when I'm going to put
No,
my hand
I
up.
I had jumped you earlier.
Oh, right, that's
So I
okay.
apologize to like go off.
I thought you
about
could just read my
ceramics.
mind now. I was really impressed.
We do work well together.
Yeah.
Okay, Liz.
So the couple questions. Independent study, just to clarify, so you would want that to be graded. It's pass fail now, but it would be, you would get an actual, you'd have to get an actual grade for that to count. One tiny point of clarification, I think you had a couple of classes in there, intro to business. That's being, just so we're on the same page, that gets credit now, I think, right? I think it was on the list, but just so we're all on the same page about the changes. So I know intro to business
Introduction to
and.
business is still on that list, unless something happened in the counseling office that I'm unaware of.
Okay, I believe it's being counted, and the other classes like marketing are being counted.
Yes.
So
marketing
maybe
was
that
on
one's-
that original draft.
Okay,
Ms. Buckley said, no, there have been some adjustments to those, and now they're counting.
Okay.
That's the other thing of when and
Okay.
where are these changes happening to the GPA factor,
Yeah,
and when is
okay.
everybody knowing about them? This is a
Okay.
way to have more control over it and include everything,
Okay.
in it. So people just aren't making arbitrary decisions
right,
along the way.
yeah, because I pretty sure intro was counted too, but you're you're in charge, so, yeah, anyway, that's a
Break it down
minor,
into the-
minor point, but, do you mean, I have one more
You have
question.
one more,
but-
then Rebecca,
Yeah,
then Megan.
okay. And so my last question at this point is just, what would you say to those kids who, they start out freshman year and their GPA is above a 4 point. So that's where their goal is, that's where they're looking. And if they are looking at adding more classes to their schedule that can only go up to 4 point, are they going to, not choose those classes, which we want them to? We want them to take the arts and stuff. You mentioned like there's an AP art class, for example. So what's the message to those kids who might be concerned about how this might affect their GPA in a not so positive way?
On a calculated guess, now what year are we talking about here? Are we talking about a junior rising to be a senior? I mean, if they've risen to 4+, which is really a small percentage overall when we're talking about our student population, right?
Mm-hmm.
What decisions are we going to make to enhance your positioning where you are right now? So we really have to get to the nitty-gritty of, do you want to diversify and not take an honors level or an AP class because this elective is meeting a pathway requirement for distinction and recognition, that you want to use this distinction and recognition on your applications for either college, and if it doesn't meet that deadline for colleges, it's meeting deadlines for scholarships that you're applying for, right? Because that's beneficial too. Sometimes those pathways aren't complete and finalized until the capstones of their senior year, and applications are already, set in.
Yeah.
But they have something that they can use and people can speak to in their recommendations for the individuals. That once you cross over into that 4+ to 5.0 or above GPA, you're in good competitive company. And really what I want to work with those families on is, okay, what do you do well outside of the classroom? Because who you're competing against are thousands of people just like you that are successful students in the classroom, but how you diversified. I would worry less about suggesting an elective that a student they're pretty, usually the kids in this range are pretty good at not taking things that's going to drop them. The one thing that we guide them on is don't take too many directed studies where instead of averaging 6 or 7 classes over the course of the year to factor into your GPA, you're reducing that division problem to 5 classes now. So if you struggle in a particular course, that in itself could drop the GPA, if you're following what I'm saying. But I think there's low risk in students taking electives once they've crossed over, the 4.0 scale in taking a college prep elective or an honors level, unless they're really vying for that valedictorian title at the end. And we do have that competition that we deal with every year. It's the nature of high schools. We understand that. But everything is on an individual basis. I think for the most part, for the majority of our students, factoring in the GPA is going to help them.
I will say, if I can give my little story,
I feel like I can't tell you no.
You can't tell me no. No, you did it. I chose going into senior year and my high school experience. I chose to take an elective, an unweighted elective, which was the yearbook and newspaper, instead of taking a weighted course, even though I knew it was going to drop my GPA and I would not be valedictorian. And I did it, and I was all the better for it. And I learned so much, and now I write for a living as a lawyer. So like doing that, and I was editor. Anyway, it was a choice, and I was glad that I did it. So anyway, for whatever it's worth.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to okay you. I'm just trying to think how to structure this because it is getting late. We still have a lot to talk about. Rebecca, Megan. I guess if there's any other questions,
My comment doesn't really need to.
No, it's fine. I don't want to silence anybody.
I don't feel silenced. I just wanted to reassure you about my feelings around your situation, but I can talk to you about that independently. It's okay.
Megan?
I just have one more thing to say. I think a lot of the programs that we currently have, like VHS, Independent Study, they're really good, but people don't know about them. Yeah. And I don't know how, some people know and some people don't. I think obviously there's the age-old issue of people not reading emails. But I think that if more people were aware about you can take an independent study and you can learn about whatever you want to learn, more people would be more interested in it, because sometimes people just people don't know what that means.
Right. And I think over time with many high schools, independent studies aren't necessarily a promoted thing, and they're not going to be a promoted thing at college either, because contractually teachers have so many classes that they are assigned to teach. We've had a number of teachers that have taken on independent studies and have the kids report during a section when another class is happening. We're trying to evolve so independent studies don't have to be in that class at that time. But if independent studies expand, they have to expand to a cohort where there's a healthy number where it would actually count as a teaching section. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So if Ms. Sousa is teaching AP biology in a number of sections of those, but in lieu of that, because we have fewer kids signing up for it, there are more kids asking for an independent study with her, it would almost have to replace one of her courses. So she'd be teaching 4 instead of 5, and that 5th block would be 20 independent studies, kids doing different things, but that's what she'd be doing. That's the only way it would work if independent studies are going to expand. They do need to be student-driven. Students need to solicit teachers to seek their interest in taking them on for that. That's the current state. But if there's any chance of that expanding, that's how the structural changes would need to be.
I'm also wondering, if it were to expand, do you think that it would be a good thing to do group independent studies to broaden having a sort of group of people to discuss?
I love the idea, Megan, and if you've been to a science fair, the energy that students bring to that environment, it's not individual work. It's what they're feeding off each other and what they've done and shared over several months of those projects. So in so many of those cases. So there's I don't see limits to a lot of potential. It's just the willingness and the structures that we need to, you know,
So I think
provide.
these are great questions and maybe better served outside of a school committee meeting for
Sure.
now. So thank you both for that. Liz, I think you had one more question about the
Yeah.
topic ahead of us.
Yes. Would these changes apply retroactively so that kids who are sophomores, freshmen now would see a sort of a change in their
Yes,
calculation?
our current enrollment of students that will be with us in 2024, 2025, I would want to make that retroactive.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin, thank you so much for this. I really appreciate all the work that went into this. I really appreciate you looking at what the other districts are doing, and thinking about how to better serve our students all around and making it more equitable. I think this was an amazing time, amazing discussion. I guess what I'd like to do, and we'll talk about this in future agenda planning, is have you come back, so we can just maybe make it official and
Sure,
talk about the
yeah.
wording. Does that work for everybody? But I think this is such a positive, and just, I love that you've really only been 2 years, right? 2-3 years, and you're just seeing what needs to be done and coming forward with recommendations and suggestions. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
We appreciate you.
Good to see all of you.
Thank you.
And I really love ceramics. I don't want to put down ceramics. Like, it's an amazing thing. I just think
I can't do it either.
It's horrendous.
So hard. Not in a class, but like in a little,
Thanks.
little
Thank you.
session. I tried to do it.
So
I
hard.
empathize.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna skip ahead to student representative reports so I can get you guys home.
So prom is on May 4th, and tickets are on sale this week for juniors and seniors. And in order to buy a ticket, you need to be up to date on all your class dues. And then we also have the school musical coming up on April 6th, 7th, and 8th, and that's Bye Bye Birdie.
This week is 10th grade math MCAS, and yeah, I think today was the last day, or tomorrow is the last day. And then GHS and GMS are they've started a new Quiz Bowl club team together, and they're looking for new members.
I want to do that.
Get Billy Costa to host. Awesome. Is that?
Yeah.
Thank you both. Thank you for your thoughtful questions and input tonight. It was really appreciative. I really wanted you here to listen, so thanks for staying a little late. Have a good night.
You.
All right.
Thank you.
And
Thanks, David.
Jimmy Cummings.
All right,
Please shake your hand.
tonight I'm asking that the school committee vote to approve the draft Student Opportunity Act plan that is provided to you. Jen Mannion's done the bulk of the work. She had to go to a couple days worth of seminars on this. It's a tremendous amount of work for comparatively very, very little. The Student Opportunity Act was started in 2019, as you know, hundreds of millions of dollars. Our entire Chapter 70 increase is $87,000, so probably half of that maybe is going to our initiatives. You compare that to, I think there are 19 districts that receive, and it's very needed, receive over 90% of the SOA money. So this doesn't move the needle much for us, but yet we still do. There is a giant plan that they have to do if you're bringing in tens of millions. Our plan is still extensive, and it took, as I said, probably 3 days worth of work for very, very little. I think the concept is good, but the funding just hasn't been worked out yet. So we've got a 3-year plan. As I mentioned, it does need school committee approval before we can submit a draft. It goes to DESE. DESE, like they would for a grant, they look at it, they send it back to us if there are any issues, et cetera. I think they're spending 90% of their time looking at the districts that have millions and millions. We focused on 3 things, and they're all 3 things, obviously, that we're doing that we've talked a lot about. The adoption of inclusive curriculum. For us, that's both in literacy and mathematics. a plan for supporting that curriculum implementation, and increasing or building upon the secondary pathway program that we offer and the number of dual enrollment courses that we offer at the high school. We're also looking next year to begin a partnership with Project Lead the Way. That's in grades 7 through 12. I think Jen may have spoken about it. If not, she will be. Very hands-on, science-based curriculum. It's fantastic. So you'll see in the actual plan we put, there's really no definition. You can put anything under the sun. Once we go over 50 grand, it's all stuff we're doing. So we put in a bunch of the positions that we have. Nothing that you see there is new. It's just trying to capture what we're doing now. So it shows for these three things, if you add up all the salaries, et cetera, over 3 years, you're looking at like $2 million. Yeah, it's different. And then my last point, and I probably should have made this clear at the beginning, they used to take that SOA allotment and it would be like set aside. You'd have 60 grand for Grafton or something. Now it's just folded into Chapter 70. So in that 12.8 million is SOA money. We know what that increase is, but it kind of makes it look and sound like it's robust. It's not.
Any questions? Thank you, Jeff.
I just have one thing, the very last page of the report, it's a minor thing, but the total is missing.
Fourth box from the bottom.
Fourth box from the bottom.
Okay.
Just, it's
Thanks.
easy to spot. And I guess the other question, can you go back like 2 slides?
Yep.
No, more than that, sorry. That one. So it says FY '24 to FY '25.
Yep.
That's 2 fiscal years.
The difference. That the increase that they're
FY
saying,
25.
right,
Okay.
right.
All right, I'm glad I asked. Okay,
Yep,
thank you.
I'm glad you did too. Sorry, I wasn't clear about that. And we're gonna basically take this summary, this is just a summary doc, and we'll definitely go through it again and make sure we've got it rock solid. This gets broken up and put into DESI format, like a grant. That's like 20 pages. So this just tried to kind of capture it in a somewhat digestible document. And Jen, per regulations, she's been going to meet with PTGs. I think she met with the CPAC and went over it. So she's met already with a bunch of community groups just to talk about it.
Thanks, Jay, for putting in all this work. I will take a motion.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that the school committee approve and accept the Student Opportunity Act plan as presented with the change noted.
Second.
Motion been seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Great. Motion carries 5-0.
Great, thanks.
Thank
I'll
you,
keep
Jay.
you
I know
posted
that's a
on that.
tremendous amount of work
It
for.
was all
little-
primarily Jen Mannion.
Well, thank you to Jen. Please
I will thank
pass
her.
thanks to her. And we're gonna move right into your superintendent
Sure,
report.
just a few quick things. I wanted to recognize Liam Shaker, GHS Senior, was recently recognized as the Worcester County Superintendent Association Scholar, representative from Grafton. Myself, Kevin Carney, and Liam attended a luncheon at Holy Cross last Thursday. It was great. Just really impressive young man. He was invited to come tonight, but he had some college something. So he's going to come on one of the April meetings. I forget which one. So he'll be here. We went to Model UN. Mandy and I have I'm actually the head advisor. She's my assistant. We took 20 kids early on Friday morning into Northeastern. We got back maybe 5:30. It was a full day. They were awesome. They won like tons of stuff. I didn't even know what it was, but the top honor, the gold medal, if you will, for the whole thing was a team of Melissa Goncalves and Abi Sood. Abi was a rookie, so I think, and Melissa's like the engine of the whole thing. So I think he kind of held on to her coattails, and they won some kind of gavel, and it was awesome. At some point, maybe in April, I'm going to have them come and sum it up, but they were really into it. There was like no downtime. It was impressive. This afternoon, you may have seen that the Mass State Department of Public Health put out revised COVID guidelines that are now in line with, I think it was last week, CDC guidelines. Nothing shocking there, but we'll send that out and share it with the community probably tomorrow. And last but not least, spring sports is now fully underway. High school started last week, middle school this week. Tremendous participation, the most I've actually ever seen in 13 years. And I just want to thank Ashley Paulson. The AD has done a really nice job alongside our maintenance department, just getting everything ready, making sure it's safe and just set up well. So really impressive. And that's it.
Great. Any questions? Do you have anything for us tonight?
I've been working with the central office leadership team with just continuing to develop those mandated trainings through ArcsEd that I think I had mentioned a few meetings ago. All of the department leadership now have access to the trial so that they can go through and really go through with a fine-tooth comb and make sure that the trainings that are offered to us meet all of the different guidelines that they need in their department, and make notes on district-specific trainings that we'll need to develop and push out through that same system as well. So it's time-consuming, but I think it's going to be beneficial in the end.
Yeah, I think so. Any questions for Mandy? Thank you. All right, I know your future agenda, I'm just going to go through.
Oh,
a few
yeah,
things. Okay, future agenda planning. Next April 9th, that is a meeting I will not be in attendance. So I'm sure I'll do great.
It's gonna be a zoo.
No, we will not. You will do great. We
There's student
have
advisory that day as well.
Student advisory.
Well, that's the one we need to talk about, because I won't be there either.
Right, we already talked.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
yeah.
send an email.
We're
Yep.
prepared.
And then look to maybe get Kevin.
He is coming back May 7th anyhow.
Yeah, well, that sounds good. Why don't we do that?
Yep.
And then we have your evaluation that night as well. So, do you want to present? You'll probably present on the 23rd then, right?
Yeah.
I know you just did it, but,
Yep.
and then we'll talk about when we need the,
Yeah, early April, probably.
yeah.
Okay.
So that sounds good. That reorg meeting is still not on here, but it will be scheduled. We
Yeah,
need to
I
add it
asked
in.
Mandy to do that. Shoot. Okay.
It's on our list, it's just not, we know it's happening.
I just wanted to.
I'll get right on that
Thank
first
you,
thing in the
Mandy.
morning.
Yeah, I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
that. Goodness. Anything else? Amy?
I know we had the new athletic director in at the beginning of the year, and she gave a really great update in September, and I didn't know if maybe we wanted to try to have her back at the end of the year to give us like an end of year wrap up kind of thing.
Yeah, we definitely could.
I would love to hear from her again.
Okay.
I think it's important, given the financial situation we're in, that we hear about these programs that are so important to the kids' mental health.
Success stories
Yeah.
and
I
that
think
sort
that's
of
Just the
thing.
fact that we
Yeah.
need athletics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
not
what, yeah,
negotiable.
that's what I mean, of how,
If you're not if it's, this might be too early, but April 9th, as it stands now, is a fairly light agenda. The SWEC thing will take literally 2 minutes. It's the biggest no-brainer.
What is SWAC?
Southern Worcester Educational Collaborative, they just want to start up a capital fund. You're gonna say yes. It's so nothing.
oh, really?
Okay.
Teaching and learning report will obviously be meaty. And summer programming, we've talked about a few times. I mean, that's a good thing to talk about again, but
Yep.
that won't be.
Could we,
I mean, I
You can do
guess
it anytime
early
you
in the
want.
spring.
maybe the 7th? I mean, there's only the handbook and the superintendent evaluation. I don't know that those are gonna necessarily,
Okay.
You okay, Laura?
Yeah.
I'll invite her for that one.
Thank you.
See if
Yeah.
Totally fine.
Well, we have the handbook, then we're gonna have this grade discussion again, but I
Yeah.
think that's plenty of time. I think that's a good idea. Thanks, Amy.
Yep.
Excuse me. Okay, if anything comes up, let me know.
Okay.
All right, approval of minutes?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move the committee accept and approve all of the minutes of March 12th, 2024. That's 2 sets.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion?
Nope.
Some great minutes. Hearing none.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries 5-0. So that was for the budget hearing and our regular meeting, just for clarification. All right, and then we have a warrant.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I move the committee accept and approve warrant number 36 dated March 7th, 2024, in the amount of $249,381.92.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Motion carries. All right.
I move the committee approve and accept warrant number 37 dated March 14th, 2024, in the amount of $344,737.05.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Okay. And then
want to,
I added I think we'll put them in for next time. I added
Okay.
the minutes, last minute minutes of our policy meeting last night. I'm not sure, they weren't in the book. I'm not sure if people have had a chance.
they were online, but they weren't
Not in the book,
printed.
because we just met last night. So we can hold.
Okay.
Just to give you guys time.
Okay, makes sense.
Speaking of holding, may I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
Is it possible to hold this?
Yeah, because of time.
Because we're getting close to,
Yeah.
I've got a kid that's got to go to bed,
We still have executive.
and we still have executive session, so.
Yeah, is that okay with you? You want to
Yeah,
hold this
yeah.
to next meeting?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay,
Thank you, Jay.
great. And that's good, because you had some questions with them anyway, so.
Yeah, we don't have the finalized report.
Okay.
So.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Jay, to get you.
Yeah,
I'm excited about that conversation.
Yeah,
It's a good one, and I don't want to rush it for
Agreed.
time.
Agreed.
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I know this was gonna, I appreciate that.
100%.
Great, and then we can, the policy that we're bringing forward tonight, it should be fairly, quick, which is one of the other many benefits that, from moving to MASC, is the fact that we're not bringing, red penned policy. We chose these 3. They are supposed to be reviewed every other year. We were on the cusp, so we wanted to make sure that we were forward with them. As was pointed out earlier tonight, one of these actually didn't get moved over, the unhoused one. We're currently using the MASC one, which is fine because it's still state approved policy, but we want to make sure we get ours in. So that's what you're seeing for ahead of you. What we would like to ask the committee is just to approve as reviewed. Unless you have any questions. So, Amy.
I have 2 questions. One, are we no longer doing the first reading, second reading thing?
We are always doing first reading, second reading, except when we are bringing forward ones that have no changes. So if it's just a review and approve, we've never done first reading, second reading. We make we say we don't have any recommendations, we've reviewed them, we're asking for your approval. If you have questions, then we would bring them forth as a first, second reading, something if it was a change.
So these 3, we began reviewing, I believe, in December 2022 and approved them in January 2023.
Right.
And the only one that differs from the MASC policy is the one where we use the terms unhoused. And we made a choice in January 23 to make that change. And approved it and everything at that time. And no, we're not suggesting any changes since then.
I have one question.
Yep.
I appreciate that the identity of the coordinator is in the policy. However, that means if that changes, we then need to bring it back and change it.
Yeah.
I would like to suggest, instead of listing that, have a link to the central office staff page, which does say he is worded as homeless coordinator, but that can be changed.
Yeah.
That way, that site is always up to date, we are in control of it, and we don't have to remember to go back and approve this policy again.
I think that's a great idea. That's also something we come up with before. Yeah.
Yep.
I'll add in the link. Thanks, Amy.
Does that change require a first reading, second reading? It does not,
No.
correct?
No,
Okay.
it's not changing the
Content,
content.
Right.
substance.
Then you're looking for a motion.
I'm looking for a motion. You can do it all 3
together.
together or one at a time.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I move that the committee review and accept policies JFABD, JFABF, and JFABE
Second. Oh, Rebecca had it.
Second.
That was Rebecca's second, Rebecca.
I'll be
Motion made
checking
and
the minutes.
seconded by Rebecca. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor? Thank you. Thanks, Amy. Thanks for that feedback. Member reports. What do we got?
I attended the first wellness committee.
Oh, good.
It was really awesome, and it was really cool to see, I mean, the variety of people involved was amazing, but one of the things which also ended up coming up today is the adjustment counselors from the little kids were there, and it's so, I feel like when we think about mental health, we often think about, you know, teens and all these struggles and all this stress, and it was great to see it being like the whole gamut, and it was beautiful. So, first meeting, not a ton of stuff got done, but it was really, really wonderful.
Do you have a date for our next meeting?
I do. Do I know it off the top of my head? No, it's in April, though.
In April.
Yeah, I could get that to you. if we wanna put it.
Anyone else?
I attended Mr. GHS at the high school on March 15th, and it was so much fun. It's always a little uncomfortable as an adult sitting in the room. It's very much a high school event, but I just kind of sheepishly laugh and enjoy it and applaud their talent. These kids were amazingly talented. So that was fun. And then attended the NGS PTG Spring Fling with Laura.
And?
And Leora, sorry. And
Mandy.
And Mandy. And it was at Highfields, and it was very well done and a lot of fun. But apparently I stayed out too late and got too tired and forgot who all was there. I'm sorry.
Super fun band.
Oh yeah, the band
Loved
was
that band.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, 90s cover band. They were really good.
Yeah, Leora's hit me another date with her, like around, so
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna follow the band.
We're following them around.
We're
now.
following the band.
We're getting a van.
Yeah, that sounds about right. All right, Liz covered, I also went to Mr. GHS and the Spring Fling. I wanted to make sure everybody was aware, I let the students know, that May 7th is the Day on the Hill at MASC. I will be going, if anybody wants to attend with me. I'll reach out to Senator Moore and Representative Moranian to see if we can meet with them. If you haven't been, it's a great time to kind of see all our MASC advocacy working, and they do have lunch from vocational schools around the Commonwealth, and sometimes it's been under construction, but I actually think we're going to get to go back to the State House, which is really cool. And Representative Moranian will give you a terrific tour where he shows you like all the cool, like it's really, I mean, it's just awe. It's beautiful. Like in awe. So you can sign up, and I let the students know. Unfortunately, it's I think an AP test that day, which is probably kind of yucky. But they can, they go for free. So I'm looking forward to that. All right. Any other member reports that you thought of while I was gabbing? All right. And then we have correspondence that I'll read out loud. Good morning. I hope this email finds you well. I'm writing to you as a request to be placed on the school committee agenda on Tuesday, May 26th. I would like to ask the board some questions regarding the transfer of policy to MASC. Thank you, Christy Kielbelzinski. My response was, hi, Christy. The school committee does not typically include platforms for community members to speak on specific topics during regular meetings. I recommend that you put your thoughts, concerns, questions into writing and share them with Jay Cummings and me as chair or the entire committee. You're also welcome to speak during public comment. However, the committee doesn't typically respond at the meeting to public comment. Regards, Laura. We do need to go into executive session. So I will take a motion.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I move the committee go into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. I do need a roll call vote for this.
Aye. Leora Brown, aye.
Amy Marr, aye.
Elizabeth Spinney, aye.
Laura Often, aye. Motion carries 5-0. You don't have to stay around.
Too bad. I did, Rebecca. I'm so good.
Motion carries 5-0. We will reconvene in public session only to adjourn. So good night, Grafton. Ben, thanks for sticking with us. Good meeting, and have a great weekend. Go see Bye Bye Birdie.